I never imagined that the deepest wound could become the strongest glue, but one betrayal taught me that love isn't about perfection. It's about what you're willing to rebuild when everything shatters. My name is Elena. At 38, I thought I had it all figured out. Married to Marco for 14 years, 2 beautiful daughters, a home filled with laughter and Sunday barbecues. We weren't fireworks anymore, but we were steady, like a well-worn path you could walk blindfolded. I worked long hours at the hospital as a nurse. He ran his small auto repair shop. We texted good mornings, kissed good nights, and assumed that was enough. Then came Rafael. He was a new doctor on my floor, charming, thoughtful, always asking how my shift went, remembering details about my girls' school plays or my favorite coffee. At first, it was harmless, quick chats in the break room, sharing memes about hospital chaos. But soon the conversation spilled into late-night texts after brutal shifts. "You okay?" he'd ask when I posted a tired selfie. I'd vent about Marco working overtime again, about feeling like I was carrying everything alone. Rafael listened, really listened. He made me feel seen in a way I hadn't in years. I told myself it was friendship. Just someone who understood the exhaustion of our world. But the secrecy crept in. I'd delete messages before Marco could glance at my phone. I'd smile at a notification and catch myself hiding it. The guilt started small, a knot in my stomach, but I pushed it down. Marco was tired too. Why burden him? Rafael never asked for more than words, but those words became everything. I shared dreams I'd buried, fears I'd never voiced to my husband. He shared his divorce pain, his loneliness. We became each other's escape. One rainy Thursday, after a 12-hour shift, Rafael walked me to my car. The parking lot was empty. He looked at me with those kind eyes and said, "Elena, you're incredible. I wish things were different." No kiss, no touch, just those words hanging in the air like smoke. I drove home shaking, heart racing. That night, Marco asked why I seemed distant. I lied, said work stress. But inside, something cracked. I realized I'd given away pieces of my soul that belonged to him. The next week, Marco found an old message I'd forgotten to delete. It wasn't explicit, just I needed that talk tonight. You always know what to say. But combined with my behavior, it was enough. He didn't yell. He just sat at the kitchen table, phone in hand, face pale. "Who is he?" he asked quietly. I broke. Tears, apologies, the whole ugly truth poured out. No physical affair, but months of emotional intimacy with someone else. I turned to Rafael for comfort, validation, excitement, things I'd stopped seeking from Marco because life got busy, routines hardened, and I assumed he'd always be there. Marco listened without interrupting. When I finished, he stood up, walked to the bedroom, and closed the door. I slept on the couch that night, sobbing into a pillow that smelled like our laundry detergent. The next morning he said 3 words that gutted me. "I don't know you anymore." He wasn't sure he could forgive what felt like emotional abandonment. I begged him to stay, promised to cut contact, to fix us. He agreed to try therapy, but only if I understood this might not work. The man who'd once looked at me like I hung the moon now looked at me like a stranger who'd stolen something irreplaceable. Therapy was hell. Twice a week, we sat across from a counselor who refused to sugarcoat. Marco spoke of feeling invisible, of pouring energy into our family while I quietly built a parallel life with someone else. She gave him her heart, he told the therapist, voice cracking. And I was left with the scraps. I owned it all, no excuses. I admitted the loneliness I'd ignored, the resentment I'd let fester instead of communicating. Rafael was blocked, number deleted, job shifts changed so would never cross paths. Transparency became non-negotiable. Full phone access, shared locations, open conversations about needs. It wasn't linear. Some nights Marco would wake up angry, replaying messages he'd read, questioning if every late shift was innocent. I'd cry, apologize again, prove my commitment with actions, small ones, like leaving work early to cook his favorite meal, writing notes about what I loved about him, asking questions I'd stopped asking years ago. How are you really feeling? We rediscovered date nights, not out of obligation but genuine curiosity. We fought, roar, honest fights about boundaries, about trust, but we fought together instead of apart. 6 months in, something shifted. Marco started reaching for my hand without thinking. I stopped flinching when his phone buzzed, trusting it was just a friend or family. We laughed more, touched more, talked about dreams again. One evening, after the girls were in bed, he pulled me close on the couch. I hated you for a while, he whispered. But hating you meant losing us. And I couldn't do that. Tears came, for both of us. Not from pain this time, but relief. A year later, our marriage isn't the same. It's better in ways I never expected. We're vigilant about emotional intimacy now. We check in weekly. Are we okay? What do you need? The scar remains. Marco says he still feels a pang sometimes, but it's a reminder, not a wound. We've learned that betrayal doesn't have to be the end. It can be the brutal awakening that forces growth. What changed my view forever wasn't the affair itself. It was realizing emotional cheating can hurt deeper than physical because it steals the soul connection that makes a partnership sacred. But more shocking, genuine remorse, radical honesty, and daily effort can forge something stronger than what existed before. Not perfect, not naive, but resilient, intentional, alive. We almost lost everything because we stopped tending the garden. Now we water it every day. And in that quiet, persistent care, I discovered the truest truth. Love isn't invincible. But when two people choose to fight for it with everything they have, even after the deepest betrayal, it can become unbreakable in a way innocence never was. That realization, it terrifies me and fills me with awe. Because it means redemption isn't a fairy tale. It's hard, ugly work. But it's possible. And sometimes, it's the only path to a love deeper than you ever knew existed.